It is a wonderful winter's day in Vienna, and sadly it's our last day here, so we've got time for one more thing before going to the airport, and of course Philip's chosen a porcelain museum.
It's the Augarten Porcelain Museum, and I'm very excited.
Was that a skip?
It was a skip, actually.
I thought I saw
a skip almost.
So this is the factory shop, is it, or the museum?
No, this is the museum, but there's also a factory shop.
Wow, we've really stumbled upon this.
Stumbled, yes, that's it. I didn't do any research whatsoever. Stumbled upon it.
It's a very high door handle.
After you.
Thank you. I'm not sure I can reach it. We're in the second oldest porcelain manufactory in all of Europe, after, of course, Meissen. This is the Vienna porcelain manufactory, Augarten. Sadly, it closed in 1864, and after that, the main Imperial porcelain for the Austrian Empire came from Herend in Hungary, which was, of course, part of the Austrian Empire, and which you also absolutely
love Herend.
But in 1923, Augarten reopened and is still producing porcelain today. I want to start by showing you an object of striking simplicity, but also extraordinary luxury, because this is an ice cream holder. Now, ice cream itself was incredibly luxurious. It dates from 1805, a time before refrigeration. And at that time, ice had to be taken from frozen lakes and rivers in winter and put into ice houses, which would try and keep it as cold as possible for it to last as long into the summer as possible. It would be cut in chunks, taken into the kitchens, where it would be used to make ice cream. It would then be placed in the bottom of an ice cream container like this. The ice cream itself will be put into a layer that sat on top of it, and then the lid of these containers is always hollow because more crushed ice and salt would be put into the top. So the ice cream will be sandwiched between two cold layers, and the salt would keep the ice as cold as possible for as long as possible.
Look how modern it looks.
It's so beautiful. 1805. But actually there's a plate here from around the same sort of time, and you see this love of nature and this simplicity.
The botanical one?
No, it's the one with just ears of corn.
I love that one. It's very Maison Janssen, the 1950s.
Yes.
I love it.
Already in the early 1800s there was this love of the simplicity of nature, but in the most luxurious materials, gold and porcelain. This darling little object at first glance may appear to be a gravy boat, but you would be very much mistaken because it is in fact a Bordelot. Now, Bordelot is named after a Jesuit priest, Louis Bordelot, who used to give sermons in the court of Louis XIV in Versailles. His sermons were incredibly long, but apparently super fascinating, and no one wanted to miss a word. And so the women of the time had to come up with an ingenious method to be able to discreetly go to the loo under their long dresses and hear every single word of his sermon. So these tiny little portable loos were called Bordelots after the Jesuit priest. I mean, I just don't see how you could be that discreet, because even if you'd managed to go discreetly, you still had to carry it around. I wanted to show you this wonderful breakfast set. It's called a déjeuner set. It's breakfast for one. But what I love about this is it's made in a chine à la branche pattern. Chine à la branche was a description of a type of weaving in silk at the time, where different coloured threads were used to create the pattern, and it gives it that inimitable look of 18th century woven silk with delicate fuzzy-edged patterns. It was extremely popular in the 18th century, but this is the first time that I've seen porcelain done to look the same as that. This dates from the 1770s. It's so elegant. Oh yes, there's another one. Is that from the same sort of period?
And it's a dessert plate from 1798.
I'm just giggling how gorgeous everything is.
This tray is the same mould as this tray.
Oh, so they had certain shapes that they would remake.
Design.
Totally different. Also, same year, 1770. And again, it's an individual breakfast set for one. But speaking of breakfast, I think there is something I love more than anything else in this older part of the museum, showing the early years of the Augarten factory. It's called a trembleuse, because in French, trembler is to shake. And we've all been there. We're carrying a tray with an overly filled cup, and we're shaking a little bit, and it will be very easy for the precious contents of our tea, coffee or hot chocolate to spill. But they solved that with a trembleuse. It's a little tray which actually cradled both the glass and the cup. And this was for hot chocolate, very precious at the time and extremely fashionable, usually drunk at breakfast. So the little porcelain cup was for hot chocolate, and then the glass was for your water next to the hot chocolate. The perfect breakfast in bed set for the fashionable woman. The last thing that I want to show you in this part of the museum, before going downstairs and seeing the more modern pieces that they created when the factory reopened in the 1920s, is also made for dining alone. But this will be more for a lunch or a dinner. Because yes, this magnificent set is for dining alone, either when travelling or perhaps at court when you want to eat just alone in your room. It has 2 plates in it, but they specifically say it's for one person. This set dates from 1819, and in fact up until the mid-19th century, long after all of the other European courts, the Austrian royalty was still eating on gold, and it was considered extremely impolite to eat on porcelain during an imperial banquet. They would only allow porcelain for the dessert service. Everything else was on gilt plates. But this isn't gilt, this is porcelain, because increasingly people were finding ways to make the new medium of porcelain work for them. So they were creating porcelain sets that looked like the gilt dining services. I mean, strange to think now when we're packing, thinking, oh, I've got my passport, phone, little suitcase. Don't stop and think, do I have my gilt porcelain set for one, just in case I want to picnic on Ryanair? There we go. That's the way people did it in the past. Now let's go downstairs and see some of the newer pieces. Oh my goodness, is this the original kiln?
Yes.
Just in the middle of the room.
Erected in 1923 in the banqueting hall of the former Imperial Garden Palace.
We're standing in the former Imperial Garden Palace.
Banqueting hall.
Thank you for being so specific, sir.
You're welcome. And the first firing took place on the 20th of August. 2 days after your birthday. Well, you weren't born.
Can I just point out I'm not that old, darling?
I didn't mean it like that.
And when they reopened, they came in with some pretty cutting-edge designs. This is a wonderful decoration from the 1930s, actually from 1936. They even have the beautiful boxes with exactly the same type of characters on as the porcelain had. I love it. It's a whimsical reinvention of older motifs. I wasn't expecting to be as excited by the boxes as by the porcelain itself. But again, these are dating from 1936, and there's a little bonbonnière to put your little chocolates in, and then next to it, these exquisite boxes. This vase from 1930 would look absolutely beautiful at Lalande. It's just wonderful. It's got a simplicity and a modernity to it, and then that little whimsical look at the past with the beautiful woman in blue and white. But I've officially found my favourite vase in the entire museum, and it's this one, women with a fan, a parasol and fruit, again from 1930. I think it is absolutely magnificent. I knew I'd enjoy this just because it's wonderful looking at porcelain, and I was expecting to look at things from the 18th century, but in fact it's the things from the 20s that I wasn't expecting to love as much as I do. This is the Turkish coffee service called the melon service, and it's delightful. From 1929, it's an absolute joy. Of course, I particularly love it in yellow. But then, blue and white is also a bit of a favourite. And Turkish coffee must have been extremely fashionable at the time, because this set from 1928 is also a Turkish coffee set. Again, it's the yellow that I'm drawn to. Has Philip seen this? Squirrel vase from 1924. Oh, what a marvellous thing. Look at him clutching his acorn.
That's the one I love.
Ah.
Squirrel and tree.
How did I guess? Designed by Herta Bücher. Mm-hmm. Gosh, I love it.
In 1924, so just after the Porcelain Manufacturer reopened.
And it was made for Louis von Rothschild.
Eichhörnchen und Baume.
Einhörnchen. Einhörnchen.
Yeah, Eichhörnchen.
Eichhörnchen. Can we just point out that is the German for squirrel? We haven't just lost our
but
minds.
That's also the word that the Germans used in the Second World War to determine whether someone was really German or not.
Or a spy.
Yes, and I think that the Brits did the same with the word squirrel.
Squirrel, because that's hard to say, but the French did the same with the word écureuil.
Really?
Also really hard to say.
So all three use the same
words for
word.
squirrel. Yeah. Squirrel, écureuil, Einhörnchen.
Eichhörnchen.
Eichhörnchen, sorry.
Squirrel.
Look, I'm
And
not a spy.
écureuil. So I think I could have been a spy for all three countries.
Yeah, you could actually.
I hope so. This cup was made in 1924 to have as a souvenir for the opening of the, or the reopening rather, of the Augarten porcelain factory.
You must love it because it's the colours that you like.
Yes, I love the little design as well.
Yeah.
But it looks much older than 1924. They're quite a classical influence.
And actually all of the others are quite strikingly modern pieces, which I love.
There's one here that I quite like, specifically because it's got the old like pamphlet behind it. And this is that. Look how much it comes to life. Exactly.
Poster.
That looks quite... I mean,
Yeah, if you just saw the poster, you wouldn't realise how stunning it
colourful
is.
it is. And you can really see how this was modern at the time.
Oh yeah, 1927. From Matilda Flögel. Actually, most of the names of the designers have been women, I think, as we've gone round.
That is because a lot of people were involved in war, etc. And at that time, they admitted more women to the art schools.
After the First World War.
After the First World War.
Ah, it's fascinating. Now that we've seen the museum, we've come through to the shop, and I am delighted to be able to tell you that they're still making that melon service. There it is in all its glory. Philip and my uncle are just effortlessly closing my suitcase for me.
It's what Whoa!
Thank you very much, the pair of you. This is it, we've checked out. They kept all our luggage for us. We think that we've time for one last hurrah in Vienna before going to the airport. So we're going to try to taste some of the famous Sachertorte at the Hotel Sacher. Here we are. Now let's just hope they have a table available. We have made it to our very beautiful destination. And we've gone for a very purist final meal in Vienna. It's the Sacher sausages with horseradish and mustard. I'm not going to make the mistake I made last time. This is not grated cheese. It's come to the most important part of our entire trip to Vienna. We have to find out which is best. The Imperial torte, the cake for which our Hotel de Imperial is famous for, or the Sacher torte, the cake for which this hotel, Hotel Sacher, is famous for. Both of them send their cakes all around the world. The Imperial torte we've been having every single night because they've been leaving a little piece on our pillows every evening. And it was first invented in 1873 when there was the opening of the Imperial Hotel. And they found out the night before the grand opening that the Emperor was going to come to the grand opening. And they went into a complete panic trying to work out what to serve him. And in those days, cakes were round, very elaborate, beautifully decorated. And one of the apprentices, who wasn't allowed to touch any of the equipment in the kitchen, decided that he would give it a try. And because he couldn't touch any of the equipment, he had to make it entirely by hand. He spent the whole night working on it. And the next day when they tasted it, this beautiful minimalist square cake that he created with no decoration on, they decided it was so delicious they would serve that to the emperor. And he liked it so much that he ordered a second slice, which was unheard of in those days and a huge success. They've been making it ever since, and because of that first night, they're still making it by hand with no specialist kitchen equipment. They still make it in the kitchen of the hotel and send it from there around the world. How is it, Tatinette?
Delicious.
So this is a big thing. Which did you prefer, the Sacher torte or the Imperial torte that we had at the Imperial?
Honestly, it's softer.
It's going down very well. I must say, I like the apricot jam in this one.
Yes, I like that.
That's really good.
The apricot jam. But overall, I still prefer the other one.
Well, actually, the Imperial, they have two other flavours now. They have an orange one and a raspberry one, which we didn't try. We'll have to come back to Vienna.
This is a must.
We've got to keep coming back till you get the lederhosen.
Stephanie, I am positive he's going to get a pair.
Me too. Absolutely positive.
On your next ball at Lalande, he will be coming as an Austrian.
We had a wonderful time in a men's clothing shop, and I actually filmed that outing for my patrons, so they've seen it. And basically, Philip was the dresser. He was bringing, you had your own personal valet, bringing all of the things in my uncle's size. My uncle's trying on all of the different Austrian jackets, and he did buy a very beautiful one and a lovely waistcoat. We've made it to the airport, and we don't want to leave.
We don't.
It's been
we had such a fantastic time.
It's been glorious.
It's been wonderful.
Are you okay? No. Philip just ran off. We suddenly realised we'd forgotten our little roll-on suitcase that we love.
I have the baggage control. Thank you so much.
Flight number 1 this evening. Flight number 2 in the morning. This is the true end of the holidays. We won't see you tomorrow. Your flight's even earlier than ours. And ours is early enough.
Going to get about 5.
Okay, you're going to the south of France.
Yes.
We're going to the centre of France.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
So sad.
And me too. I'm so sad.
It's wonderful.
Bye-bye. I love your work, Philip. He's come up with the ingenious plan of just wheeling the airport trolley into the bedroom so that we can just wheel it straight back again early in the morning.
We're just borrowing it for a few hours.
And on that note, I'm going to say goodnight because we are absolutely exhausted, but we get to have 5 luxurious hours of sleep before getting up again tomorrow. So we're going to make the most of them. But all going well, I will see you all again tomorrow night from Lalande.